Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is Tuesday, February 10th, 2026. And I have to be honest with you right out of the gate, looking at the calendar on the wall and then looking down at this absolutely massive stack of documents spread across the desk.
Yeah,
It feels a little surreal.
it really does.
Usually we're sitting here digging into history or maybe analyzing some market trends or a new tech breakthrough. But today feels different.
It certainly does. It feels heavy. It is not every day we get to analyze a document that claims to predict, minute by minute, the end of an era.
Right.
And not just predict it, but blueprint it.
Exactly. We are looking at a definitive confidential breakdown of something called Operation Shadowfall. And if this blueprint is to be believed, and we have vetted the sources as best we can, we are staring at a 100-hour sequence that theoretically dismantles the Iranian regime.
Completely.
Completely. The Islamic Republic, as we have known it since 1979, gone in 4 days.
And it's not just about dismantling it, but replacing it. That's the part that really caught my eye. We are analyzing a specific document titled 100 Hours to a New Reality in Iran, but we are also looking at the follow-up, which is this thick binder here called the Iran Prosperity Project.
And that's the roadmap for what comes after.
It's the what next, which is so often the part that fails.
Pause on that fall part for a second. 100 hours. I mean, that is 4 days and a wake-up. We're talking about a regime that has been entrenched for decades.
Decades.
It survived an 8-year war with Iraq. It has survived crushing international sanctions. It has survived massive internal uprisings in 2009, 2019, 2022. The idea that it could crumble in less than a week, honestly, it sounds like fan fiction.
It does.
It reads like a techno-thriller movie script, not a geopolitical reality.
I get that reaction. I really do. If you look at this through the lens of traditional 20th century warfare, you are absolutely right. If you are thinking about tanks rolling across the Iraqi border, or massive amphibious landings in the Persian Gulf, or paratroopers dropping over Tehran, then yes, 100 hours is impossible. Physically, you just can't move that much iron that fast.
Right. The logistics alone are a nightmare.
But the core argument of this blueprint, and why we're doing this deep dive, is that we aren't using that lens anymore. We can't.
So what lens are we using? If it's not tanks and planes, what is it?
It is asymmetry. That is the one word you need to keep in your head for this entire deep dive.
Asymmetry.
Asymmetry. This plan doesn't rely on brute force. It leverages technology, psychology, and crucially internal fracture points. It is not about overpowering the regime from the outside.
So no invasion.
It's about triggering a very specific engineered implosion from the inside.
Implosion, not invasion. That's a catchy tagline, but it's a terrifying concept if you think about it.
Precisely. It's about removing the load-bearing walls, digitally, financially, ideologically, and letting gravity do the rest.
Like a Jenga tower.
Exactly like a Jenga tower. You don't need to knock the building down if you can just convince the foundation to give up.
Okay, well that is a bold claim. And our mission today is to stress test this blueprint. We aren't just going to read it to you. We're going to walk you through this 100-hour collapse, hour by hour. We want to see if the logic holds up.
And then the aftermath.
Then we're going to look at what I think is the scariest part, the danger zone. That chaotic aftermath where everything could go wrong. And finally, we will look at this incredibly ambitious reconstruction plan.
And the reconstruction details are arguably more fascinating than the collapse itself. I mean, the level of economic planning involved is just staggering.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, later on, we're going to talk about Hour 72, the turning point involving a fatwa from Qom.
The religious linchpin.
We're going to discuss a bloodless turnover of the supreme leader, which sounds impossible given the history of the region. And the economics. The projection of inflation dropping from 40% to 15% in months.
That's the aha moment.
That's the moment we really need to dig into.
It's a lot to unpack. And we have the time today to really do it justice.
So let's get into it. Section 1, the 100-hour collapse. Phase 1. The document calls this the Invisible War. Hour 0 is set for today, February 10th, 2026. Ignition point. But before we light the match, set the stage for us. We can't understand the collapse if we don't understand the structure. What is the context in Iran right at this moment, according to these sources?
The context is extreme fragility. You have to look past the military parades and the state-sponsored rhetoric. The document paints a picture of an economy that isn't just struggling, it's in total freefall.
Freefall, not just a recession.
No. We are seeing hyperinflation that has wiped out the savings of middle class. The sanctions have bled the country dry of foreign capital, and the population, they are exhausted. They're tired of the slogans, tired of the poverty, tired of the lack of future.
So the ground is dry, it just needs a spark.
Exactly. But the ignition point isn't about the people rising up initially. This is the nuance the document highlights. The spark isn't in the street.
Where is it?
It's among the elite. The inner circle is fractured.
Fractured how? I always thought the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, was this monolithic block of loyalty. The Praetorian Guard.
That is the image they project, and it's a very effective image. But the intelligence reports in this file cite intercepted communications suggesting rumors of a coup among the IRGC commanders themselves.
Wow, so they're eating their own.
There is infighting over the succession crisis, who comes after Khamenei. There's fighting over the shrinking economic pie. The Revolutionary Guard isn't a monolith anymore. It's a collection of competing business empires with guns.
And they're all looking at each other sideways.
Precisely. The document calls it a narrow window of vulnerability, where the guys with the guns are eyeing each other suspiciously.
So the regime is cracking from the inside before the operation even starts. It's like a pressure cooker with a faulty valve.
Right, and that is the catalyst. The plan authorizes Operation Shadowfall to exploit that specific crack. And while the name Shadowfall sounds like a summer blockbuster,
It really does. I feel like I need popcorn just reading the title page.
the doctrine behind it is very real. It is a multi-vector strategy. You have cyber dominance, psychological operations, and precision strikes all hitting at once.
A blitz.
It's designed to overwhelm the decision-making loop of the leadership. They won't know what's hitting them or where it's coming from.
So the clock starts. Hours 1 to 12. The document calls this the cyber onslaught. Now, we've heard about cyber attacks before. Usually it's website goes down or customer data gets stolen. This seems different.
This is on another level entirely.
What is happening on the ground in Tehran at hour 1?
It is chaos. But it is curated chaos. That's the key. We aren't just talking about the lights going out in a neighborhood. U.S. Cyber Command, working with the NSA and allied intelligence agencies, launches a barrage of pre-positioned digital incursions.
Pre-positioned, so they've been inside the systems for a while.
For months, maybe years. They are hitting the power grids in Tehran, specifically the grids supplying government districts, military bases, the leaders' compound.
Targeted blackouts.
Very targeted. They are hitting the communication networks for state media. IRB, the state broadcaster, goes dark. And most importantly, they are freezing the financial systems tied specifically to the regime's elite.
So, paint the picture for me. I'm a citizen in Tehran. I wake up, the power is out. Which, happens sometimes, right?
Sure, it's an inconvenience, but not panic-inducing on its own.
But then I turn on the TV.
Static. Or a blank screen. The morning news isn't there.
I check my banking app.
Error message. But not for everyone. The document says the targeting is specific to the banks used by the IRGC and the bonyads, those massive religious foundations that control the economy.
So a general's bank account is frozen, but mine might be okay.
Exactly. For the average person, the disruption is just confusing. It feels like incompetence, not an attack.
Okay, so the lights are out, the TV is dead. Why is this different from a normal blackout? What's the secret sauce here?
Because of the narrative. Here's a trick, and this is the genius of the asymmetry we discussed. It is engineered to look like internal sabotage.
Wait, hold on. Why does it matter what it looks like? If the lights are out, they're out.
It matters immensely for psychology. Think about it. If the lights go out and the TV comes back on and says, the great Satan, America, has attacked our power grid, what happens?
People rally.
The population rallies around the flag, nationalism kicks in, we are under attack by foreigners, it unites them against an external enemy.
Right. An external threat makes people forget about their internal problems for a minute.
Exactly. But if the lights go out, the TV is dead, and it looks like the regime is incompetent, or worse, that factions inside the regime are fighting and blowing up their own grid to hurt each other.
That triggers despair.
It triggers despair, it triggers disgust, it confirms every suspicion you already had about them.
It breaks the trust. It makes the government look like a failing mess, not a victim.
It breaks the narrative of control. And while the state media is blacked out, the real information war begins. The plan calls for flooding social media with deepfake videos.
Deepfakes. We talk about the dangers of these all the time in our other deep dives. How are they weaponized here?
They are used to confirm the population's worst fears. You have realistic videos, indistinguishable from reality to the naked eye of the supreme leader, Khamenei, fleeing the country. Videos of him boarding a jet for Russia.
Wow. Not just a rumor, but you see it.
You see it with your own eyes. You have videos of IRGC generals loading bags of cash onto private planes.
Oh, man.
Videos of them arguing and shooting at each other in conference rooms. It's designed to look like the RAS are abandoning the ship and fighting over the last scraps on their way out.
And because the state media is down, the regime can't go on TV and say, this is fake, here is the leader, he is fine.
Correct. They have lost the microphone. They have lost the information monopoly. The citizens are accessing these videos via VPNs and satellite internet, which the plan notes are being provided covertly by Western intelligence.
Starlink terminals.
Starlink terminals, mesh networks, you name it. So you're sitting in the dark, you're hot, you're confused, you look at your phone, and you see your leaders running away with your money.
You assume the ship is sinking.
You assume it's over. And when you assume the ship is sinking, what do?
You run for the lifeboats, you stop listening to the captain, you start thinking about yourself.
Exactly. You stop fearing them and you start looking out for yourself. That brings us to phase 2, hours 13 to 36. The document calls this the psychological break.
Okay, so the sun is up now. It's day 2. The confusion is setting in. The power is still spotty. The deep fakes are spreading like wildfire. What happens to change the dynamic from confusion to action?
The narrative shifts from chaos to opportunity. Voice of America, BBC Persian, dissident groups, Persian language channels from London. They all start broadcasting on those satellite channels.
Right, the only media that's still working.
But they aren't just shouting death to the dictator. That's old news. That's the protesters' job. They're broadcasting something new, promises of amnesty.
Amnesty for whom? The people in the streets.
No, for the enforcers, for the military. The mid-level officers, the guys commanding the battalions, the guys running the local police stations.
The people with the guns.
The people with the guns. The message is simple. The leaders have fled. The regime is over. If you stand down, you will be safe. There's a place for you in the new reality.
That is a crucial pivot. You're giving them an off-ramp. Usually these guys fight to the death because they think they'll be executed if they lose.
Exactly. Sun Tzu 101. Build your enemy a golden bridge to retreat across. If you corner a rat, it bites. If you open a door, it runs.
So you dangle the carrot.
But while they dangle that carrot of amnesty, the stick comes out. The document describes the use of drone swarms.
This part was chilling to read.
Yeah.
It's not mass bombing, right? We aren't talking about leveling blocks. This isn't World War II.
No. It's hyper-specific, surgical. Kinetic eliminations of hardliners. We're talking about taking out the head of the Basij militia or specific ideological zealots who are known for their brutality and who are trying to rally the troops.
The ones who would never take the amnesty offer.
The true believers. But again, notice the framing. They are framed as internal purges.
How do you do that? How do you make a drone strike look like an inside job?
The intelligence provides details on internal rivalries. So when a hardline general's car explodes, the rumors pushed on social media are that his rival from another IRGC faction did it to settle a score.
So if I'm a mid-level commander standing in my barracks and I see my hardline boss get his car blown up, I don't think the Americans got him with a Reaper drone.
No. You think, my own government is cleaning house. The factions are killing each other, and I might be next.
Paranoia. Pure paranoia.
It sows absolute distrust. You don't know if the order coming down the phone line is real or a trap. You don't know if your superior is about to promote you or arrest you. You don't arrest the guy next to you.
It freezes them. They stop making decisions. They just try to survive.
And the effectiveness. The document lists a metric here that seems incredibly high, but given the psychological pressure, it makes sense. By hour 36, reports indicate 20% of mid-level officers have gone AWOL.
1 in 5 just walks away. They take off their uniform and melt into the population.
That is the tipping point. Military theory tells us an army doesn't need to be destroyed to lose. It just needs to stop functioning as a cohesive unit.
The chain of command breaks down.
When 20% of your command structure vanishes, the chain of command dissolves. Orders don't get passed down. Intelligence doesn't get passed up. The army effectively ghosts. It becomes a non-factor.
So the military is paralyzed. The police are unsure who to arrest. Now we move to hours 37 to 60. Isolation and betrayal. This seems to be where the international community steps in, but not with boots on the ground.
Right, this is diplomatic asymmetry. The State Department activates back channels, specifically utilizing Qatar and Oman. They are reaching out to reformists within the government, the people who have been sidelined but still hold office, the technocrats.
The ones who are never true believers, just careerists.
Exactly, and they're offering them a deal. Help us smooth the transition and we lift sanctions immediately. Help us and you get a seat at the table. You don't go to jail.
Incentivizing the betrayal. It sounds dirty, but I guess it's practical.
It's bribery with a fancy diplomatic name, but yes, it's highly effective. You're offering them a future when their current one is evaporating. And simultaneously, we see the leak.
The fabricated documents. Talk more about those.
Yes, documents expose globally that show high-level corruption, but not just they stole money. That's expected. We are talking about documents showing secret deals with Russia that sell out Iranian sovereignty or embarrassing intelligence failures that led to the deaths of their own agents.
Things that make them look incompetent and treacherous, not just greedy.
Precisely. The goal here is to erode international support. Russia and China are the regime's lifelines. They veto UN resolutions, they buy the oil, they provide the surveillance tech.
So the goal is to make Beijing and Moscow look at Tehran and say, this is a losing bet. These guys are clowns.
Exactly. If the world sees undeniable, even if fabricated or exaggerated proof that the regime is essentially a criminal enterprise that is collapsing, China isn't going to send troops to save them. It's bad business.
They hesitate. They stay neutral. They don't send the cavalry.
And that hesitation is fatal. While they're waiting and seeing, the situation on the ground accelerates. By hour 60, the visual described in the document is Khamenei's residence. The Beit Rabari, surrounded.
By protesters.
Not at first. It's surrounded by his own defecting guards who are trying to negotiate their own safety with the outside world.
Wow. The Praetorian Guard turning on the emperor.
It's the final stage of regime collapse.
That brings us to the climax. Phase 3. Hour 61 to 84. The momentum surge. This is where the people actually hit the streets, right? Because so far, this has been a lot of spycraft and cyber war.
Yes, this is when the public mobilization happens. The fear is broken. They see the military is not shooting. They see the leaders are in disarray. But again, it is tech-enabled. The document calls it crowdsourced warfare.
That's a new one on me.
It mentions Silicon Valley firms anonymously supporting mapping apps. Think Ways for the revolution?
Ways for revolution. How does that work?
Imagine an app that tells you in real time. Security forces are setting up a roadblock on Main Street. Go to 2nd Avenue instead.
Oh, wow.
Tear gas reported at the square, move to the park. Water cannons spotted moving east on Revolution Ave. It directs the flow of the crowd like water. It makes the protests decentralized.
It prevents the Tiananmen Square scenario where everyone gathers in one big kill zone.
Exactly. It makes the protests fluid, impossible to pin down. It exhausts the remaining loyal security forces because they have to run everywhere at once. But the real turning point, the one you mentioned in the intro, is hour 72.
The fatwa. Now, help our listeners understand this. We know what a fatwa is, generally a religious ruling, but why is this specific action so devastating in this timeline?
You have to understand the geography of power in Iran. Tehran is the political capital. That's where the money is, the guns, the ministries. But
Qom is different.
Qom is the spiritual capital. It's the Vatican of Shia Islam. It's where the seminaries are, where the grand ayatollahs study and teach. It's the source of religious legitimacy.
Okay, so it's the religious heart.
The regime's entire legitimacy is based on a concept called velayat-e-faqih, the guardianship of the Islamic jurist. They claim to rule not because they won an election, but by divine right. They represent God's will on earth.
It's their whole reason for being.
It's everything. Now imagine if a senior Grand Ayatollah in Qom, someone with immense respect who has been quiet for years, issues a fatwa declaring the regime illegitimate.
Saying they've lost their way.
Saying they are corrupt, violent, and no longer represent Islamic values. If Qom turns on Tehran, the ideological foundation crumbles. It's like the Pope excommunicating a Catholic king.
It pulls the rug out from under them religiously.
The hardliners can't say they are fighting for God if the highest religious authorities say they aren't. It gives the pious soldiers, the ones who truly believe, permission to stop fighting.
It's a religious excuse to disobey.
It gives them a religious exemption to disobey orders. It's a get-out-of-jail-free card for their conscience.
That is profound. It's not just a political defeat. It's a spiritual excommunication of the government.
Exactly. And that triggers the domino effect. The regular Navy in Bandar Abbas mutinies because they don't want to fire on their own people. Provincial governors in Isfahan and Shiraz see the writing on the wall and declare autonomy to save their own skins.
The state is dissolving.
It's a cascade failure. And then, the endgame. Hours 85 to 100. Checkmate. The capture of the supreme leader. And notice the detail in the script here. He is captured by his own security detail.
The ultimate betrayal. I'm not going down with the ship. I'll hand him over and save myself.
It's the ultimate act of self-preservation. Following that, the Majlis, the parliament, convenes an emergency session and votes to dissolve the Islamic Republic. It's a legal fiction, but it provides a veneer of legitimacy to the transition.
They're trying to make it look like an internal process, not a coup.
Mm-hmm. And by hour 100, the U.S. announces massive humanitarian aid shipments are on their way. Food, medicine.
Positioning themselves as liberators, not conquerors.
Exactly. And the summary note here is striding. I circled it 3 times in my notes. Achieved without a single American casualty.
It is a staggering scenario. A regime change without a ground invasion. But, and there's a big but here, toppling the regime is arguably the easy part. We've seen regimes fall before. It's what comes next that usually turns into a nightmare.
History tells us that is true. Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan. Winning the war is easy. Winning the peace is incredibly hard.
Now you have a power vacuum. You have 85 million people, a collapsed economy, competing factions, and a lot of guns lying around. Section 4 describes the danger zone, the post-collapse scenarios. The document explicitly references the Iraq era.
Right. They are terrified of repeating 2003. In 2003, the U.S. dismantled the Iraqi state completely. They fired the army, fired the police, fired the bureaucrats. Debathification. And the result was total chaos and insurgency. You sent hundreds of thousands of trained men home with no job, no pension, and a gun. It was a recipe for disaster.
So what are the alternatives here? The experts analyze 5 possible scenarios. Let's run through them quickly because the stakes are high.
Option 1 is managed transition. That's the dream. That's what the blueprint is aiming for.
Describe that.
You keep the state intact, the bureaucracy, the garbage collectors, the traffic cops, the water treatment engineers, but you swap the top leadership. You cut off the head, but keep the body functioning. Stability is prioritized over instant, perfect democracy.
Okay, that sounds sensible. What's option 2?
Clerical collapse, military takeover. This is the Egypt model. The mullahs are kicked out, sent back to the mosques, but the IRGC takes off the religious robes, puts on business suits, and runs the country as a military dictatorship.
So same oppression, different dress code. Not exactly freedom.
No, but it might be stable, which some international players would accept. Option 3 is the return of monarchy. Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi comes back from exile.
Is that a realistic possibility?
There is actually a lot of nostalgia for the Pahlavi era among the youth who never lived through it. They see photos of the 70s women in skirts, economic growth, and they want that back.
But it's polarizing.
Very. The Islamists hate the monarchy. The leftists and Marxists hate the monarchy. It could trigger a lot of infighting.
And the nightmare scenario, the one that keeps diplomats up at night.
Option 4, fragmentation and chaos. A turbocharged Syria. The central authority dissolves completely. The Kurds in the west break away to form their own state. The Baluchis in the southeast break away. The Arabs in the southwest seize the oil fields.
Civil war.
A brutal, multi-sided civil war, ethnic cleansing, a humanitarian crisis that would make Syria look small. This is what the neighbors Turkey, Saudi Arabia are terrified of. A black hole next door.
And the 5th option.
Reform from within, where opposition groups like the Mujahideen Khalq, the MEK, try to seize power. But they're a fringe group, seen by many Iranians as a cult, so that could also lead to civil war. The blueprint we are looking at aims for a mix for that managed transition. It tries to thread the needle to avoid the Iraq mistake.
So let's look at the actual roadmap they laid out in the Iran Prosperity Project, Section 5. The first 18 days, February 10 to 28. How do you form a government in 2 weeks in a war zone?
You form the ITC, the Interim Transitional Council. It's a coalition. You can't just pick one guy. That would be a disaster. You put the opposition leaders, the defected military generals, and civil society leaders, lawyers, human rights activists, in one room.
A government of national unity.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
And who sits at the head of the table?
That's the million-dollar question.
A rotating presidency. And this is the interesting part. It involves Prince Reza Pahlavi for symbolic unity. He's the flag everyone can rally around, but also reformist clerics who can keep the religious population calm.
That is an odd couple. The Shah's son and a cleric working together.
It sounds strange, but it's designed to say everyone is welcome here. We aren't excluding anyone except the criminals from the old regime. But the biggest structural change, and this is the key to avoiding the Syria scenario, is the move to federalism.
The Federal Democratic Republic. Now, for our listeners who aren't political scientists, why is that distinction, federalism, such a big deal?
Iran has always been highly centralized. Tehran decides everything. Tehran decides what language is taught in schools in Kurdistan. Tehran decides where the oil money from Khuzestan goes. This breeds resentment. It's a core grievance.
People feel like they're occupied by their own capital.
Exactly. This plan proposes 10 semi-autonomous provinces. It models itself on the German federal system or the Swiss cantons.
So like states in the U.S. or the Bundesländer in Germany.
Yes. You give the Kurds, the Arabs in the south, the Baluchis control over their local affairs. You let them teach their own language in schools. You let them keep a percentage of the resources extracted from their land.
You give them skin in the game.
If you give them a stake in the system, they have less reason to pick up a gun and fight for separation.
You buy their loyalty with autonomy. Stay with us, and you can run your own backyard.
Exactly. It diffuses the separatist bomb before it can go off.
But you still have the issue of the guys with the actual guns. Section 6, taming the IRGC. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is 150,000 strong. They are ideological, they are armed, and they are trained. If you fire them all,
you get an insurgency. That was the mistake in Iraq with de-Baathification. The U.S. fired the Iraqi army, sent 400,000 men home with their guns and no paycheck, and they started fighting the Americans the next day. It created ISIS eventually.
A catastrophic, unforced error. So what's the alternative? How do you handle a massive ideological army that just lost?
Rebranding. The blueprint proposes the National Defense Guard. You don't dissolve the IRGC, you transform it.
How do you transform an ideological militia into a national army? That seems like turning a wolf into a sheepdog.
You separate the leaders from the grunts. You prosecute the top hardliners, the generals with blood on their hands, the ones who ordered torture. They go to tribunals. But the rank and file, the guy who joined because he needed a job, the guy who was just driving a truck or guarding a border,
you treat him differently.
You offer him amnesty. And, crucially, you offer him a pension. A secure retirement.
It always comes down to money, doesn't it?
It really does. The document explicitly allocates $5 billion in U.S. and EU aid just for pensions. You are basically paying them to be loyal to the new state.
A golden handshake.
You say, here's your monthly check, here's your job security, just change the patch on your uniform and don't pick up that gun against us.
You are buying the peace. It sounds cynical, but it's probably cheaper than a civil war.
Much, much cheaper.
Yeah.
The Civil War costs trillions. $5 billion is a bargain to keep 150,000 men off the streets and employed.
And the Basij.
Yeah.
The paramilitary volunteers. These are the guys on motorbikes with batons who beat up protesters.
They are disbanded, completely.
Yeah.
But you can't just leave them angry and unemployed either. The youth are redirected to civilian service programs. Rebuilding infrastructure, cleaning up cities, environmental projects. You have to give young men something to do or they find trouble.
You channel that energy into something constructive instead of destructive.
Precisely.
So if you can keep the guns quiet, you have to fix the reason people were angry in the first place. The economy. Section 7, the economic miracle. Because these numbers in the report are, well, miracle is the only word for it.
It's driven by one major event. The executive order on March 1st, 2026. The total, immediate, and unconditional lifting of all international sanctions.
The gold rush.
Think about it. Iran has the world's second largest gas reserves and fourth largest oil reserves. And for years, they haven't been able to sell it freely. The moment sanctions are lifted, it unlocks $150 billion in frozen assets sitting in banks in South Korea, Iraq, China.
That is a massive injection of liquid cash into the economy overnight.
And reconnection to SWIFT, the international banking system. Suddenly, an Iranian carpet merchant in Tabriz can sell to a buyer in Paris. A pistachio farmer can sell to America. The friction is gone. The entire global market opens up to them.
But for the average person, the aha moment isn't the oil sales. It's the price of groceries. It's the cost of living.
It's inflation. The report projects it dropping from 40% to 15% in the first few months.
Imagine that. For years, the price of bread has doubled every few months. Your salary buys less and less every day. It's stressful. It destroys your mental health. It's a constant state of anxiety.
And suddenly, prices stabilize. The currency stabilizes because the central bank has access to dollars again. Your money holds its value. The psychological relief of that cannot be overstated.
That's what buys the new government legitimacy.
That's it. My life is better now than it was under the mullahs. It's that simple.
And oil production jumps.
It goes from 2 million to 2.6 million barrels almost immediately, with a target of 4 million within the year. Western oil majors, Total, Shell, BP, they rush back in to upgrade the aging infrastructure. The GDP grows 10% in the first quarter. It's a boomtown.
It sounds incredible, almost like a Marshall Plan for the Middle East.
That is exactly the comparison the document uses. It's about flooding the zone with capital and opportunity to crowd out the extremists.
But to get there, you need a society that functions legally. You need social buy-in. Section 8 talks about the long game. Late 2026. Social reforms.
This is where the social contract is rewritten. The slogan gaining traction in this scenario is no to Shah, no to mullahs.
Meaning we don't want a dictator in a crown or a turban. We want something else.
We want a democracy. The plan outlines a Constituent Assembly meeting exactly 1 year after the collapse, February 10th, 2027.
Poetic timing.
It is. And the stats they aim for, 75% voter turnout, 40% female representation, would make it one of the most progressive democracies in the region overnight.
40% female representation would be groundbreaking.
And we are talking about women's rights legislation being the first item on the docket. The mandatory hijab law is abolished on day one, effectively. It becomes a matter of personal choice, not state coercion.
That would be a complete transformation of Iranian society, a cultural revolution in the opposite direction.
And recognition of minority languages in schools. It goes back to that federalism idea. You let Kurds learn Kurdish. You let Azeris learn their language. You embrace diversity instead of suppressing it.
But what about the past? What about the crimes of the old regime?
Truth commissions. You have to balance justice with reconciliation. You can't put everyone in jail who worked for the old government, but you have to acknowledge the torture, the executions. It's a tightrope walk. South Africa did it after apartheid. Iran will try to do it.
It sounds almost too perfect. I'm the skeptic here. What are the risks? What could derail this train? Section 9 covers geopolitics.
The international players. We talked about Russia and China staying neutral during the collapse because it was a bad bet. But afterwards, they will want their pound of flesh.
I want to get paid. They want influence.
They will pivot. They will say, congratulations on your new democracy. We would like to sell you construction materials. We would like to upgrade your railway system. They will try to buy influence economically since they lost it politically. It's the Belt and Road Initiative on steroids.
And the neighbors, Saudi Arabia, Turkey.
Saudi Arabia and Turkey are watching like hawks. This is the biggest risk. If that federalism plan we talked about fails, if the Kurds try to declare full independence instead of just autonomy,
Turkey might intervene.
Turkey might intervene militarily. They have their own Kurdish issue, and they absolutely do not want an independent Kurdistan on their border. That's a red line for them.
Right. It could destabilize their own country.
Exactly. And if the Shiite South gets too cozy with Iraqi militias, the Saudis might get nervous about a Shia crescent rising again. The turbocharged Syria risk is always lurking in the background. If the center doesn't hold, the neighbors might carve up the carcass.
And the internal risk, the one that comes from within.
The reformed IRGC, the new National Defense Guard. Are they really loyal to the new democracy? Or are they just waiting for the check to bounce?
So it all comes back to the economy.
It all comes back to the economy. If it doesn't boom as fast as predicted, if that inflation doesn't drop, the man with the gun might decide he should be in charge again. Their loyalty is conditional.
It's a precarious house of cards, but the blueprint argues it is the only way forward.
It relies on a perfect storm, internal fracture, external cyber pressure, and a very smart economic bailout working in perfect sync. If any one of those fails, the whole thing could turn into a disaster.
So we've walked through the 100 hours, the ignition, the cyber onslaught, the psychological break, the fatwa, the capture,
Sure.
and then the long, hard road of reconstruction.
Yeah.
It is a breathtaking and, frankly, terrifying plan.
It redefines regime change for the 21st century. It suggests you don't need 1 million soldiers to change a country. You need data, you need narrative, and you need money.
But I want to leave our listeners with a thought here. This whole operation, Shadowfall, relied on remote, cyber-led initiatives, deepfakes, drones, financial freezing, things that happen in the ether, not on the battlefield.
It is the definition of 21st century warfare. No front lines.
Does this model render traditional warfare obsolete? I mean, if you can topple a decades-old, heavily armed regime in 100 hours without a single tank crossing the border, is any government actually stable?
That is the provocative question, isn't it? In a world where information is the battlefield, every government is vulnerable to this kind of ignition. If you can break the narrative, you can break the state.
It's not about who has more tanks anymore.
It's about who has the more believable story. We used to think you needed to conquer land to win. This blueprint suggests you just need to conquer the truth, or at least what people perceive to be the truth.
A terrifying and fascinating thought to end on. If you can hack the truth, You can hack the nation.
Indeed. It's a new paradigm.
If you want to dive deeper into the nitty-gritty of the banking reforms or the specific military unit movements, and there are maps in there that are incredible, we encourage you to read the full Iran Prosperity Project blueprint. It is a dense but rewarding read.
Absolutely worth it. It's a glimpse into a possible future, for better or for worse.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the future, or perhaps the present of Iran. We will see you next time.